This video is powered by As Always Entertainment. If you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways for access to the Patreon exclusive podcast, The Kill Connor Clubhouse, early access to the Cinema Room podcast, being part of polls for future videos, and other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the video. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 is the best Call of Duty has ever been. Okay, sure, that's a bold statement and makes one hell of a catchy title, but I believe it. I wholeheartedly believe this game is the best that Call of Duty has ever been. Now, the complicated part is, this game isn't possible and would not be the best Call of Duty if it was not for Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3. These three games, this trilogy of stories following Task Force 141, if they didn't exist, this game doesn't work. The reason Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 is the best Call of Duty has ever been is because it takes a universe, it takes a set of characters and a story, and reinvents them. It elevates it to a level the original Modern Warfare games just didn't achieve. Don't get me wrong, those games are brilliant, but this one takes that universe and says, right, we can do better. If you haven't already guessed, me being me and loving myself a narrative, this video is entirely focused around the story mode. The multiplayer might not be as good as the greats of Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 2 or Ghosts 2. Never mind. But I think there's an argument to be made. I'm just not making it. I like the multiplayer of this new Call of Duty. To me, it feels like a Modern Warfare game and does what Call of Duty should do to engage me. And I'm not a multiplayer guy, so I feel that's one hell of a good job if I can engage with it. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to call the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare. If I'm referring to the old ones, I'll say COD 4 or Modern Warfare 2 or 3, just so we're all on the same page. Modern Warfare works as a reboot for the Modern Warfare universe. It takes what we knew, what we had, and reinvents it and turns it into something new while staying true to the characters like John Price. This game is set, likely, just before the events of Call of Duty 4. Obviously, it's not a direct prequel, it's a new universe, but we find out at the end that the following games will loosely be following similar characters and events to the original games. This one, however, is essentially set before any of those things happen, before Al-Assad, before Imran Zakhaev, and before Task Force 141. I think it's a perfect setting. You're able to establish the new characters, this new Price, the world we're in, the threats, the tone, without having to worry about reinventing a story we saw 12 years ago in Call of Duty 4. Now, like I said, this isn't set before COD 4 in the sense that it's being set in 2006. The events following this game will somewhat mirror the events of COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3, we can assume, with the setup given, although probably a lot more loosely. I'll talk about this a little bit more, why potentially this new timeline exists, and also where we could be going and what we could be seeing moving forward later on. But for now, let's talk about what we've got. This game opens in such a cinematic fashion, immediately establishing this is not the Call of Duty that we know. This is something new. From one of the very opening shots, this game already gave me a sense of unease. We're introduced to one of the big antagonists, and then we get a shot of a suicide bomber stepping out of a van strapped with C4 into Piccadilly Circus in London. And as you see the innocent people react, a woman taking hold of her child, the man pushes the switch on the detonator and it cuts immediately to the title card. No lens flare, no over-the-top sound effects, no explosion, no action, just plain white text on a black background after the display of what was incredibly disturbing. It's powerful, it sets the stakes, it sets the state of this world that we're playing in whilst also establishing this is not the same Call of Duty. The gloves are off, which is something that Captain Price says repeatedly throughout this game. This is war as it is, raw, unfiltered, there are no heroes. Another perfect line from Price is, we get our hands dirty and the world stays clean, which is the essence of this introduction. Moving on from this, we travel back 24 hours. We take control of a Marine named Alex on a mission to recover a shipment of chlorine gas, a gas that a terrorist organization known as Al-Qatala has been using. This is where we get our first taste of gameplay, of the diverse nature this game undertakes with its missions. We're dropped into a forest at night. We hear radio chatter as we progress through the trees, building tension and atmosphere, as two Russian mercenaries appear from between the trees. The team takes them down and we progress to the overlook of a location where the gas is being held. We're then made to call in an airstrike on the base, causing serious amounts of damage and bringing the base into ruin. As we progress down the mountain and into the base, we start to see men who are on fire, begging to be shot. And as the player, we can choose to put them out of their misery or let them continue to burn. It's very clear that this game wanted to show the nature of how war can be dirty, and they display it openly from the offset. As you move further, you enter a warehouse, only for the lights to be shut off. You have to slowly and quietly navigate through this area with a torch, as enemies lurk potentially around every corner. Again, building tension and changing the pacing. Genuinely, I felt nervous walking around in case someone were to jump out and I'd have to quickly react and gun them down. And then, as you're making your final escape, you and your team are ambushed and the gas is stolen. The entire opening is spectacular. Don't get me wrong, other Call of Duty games have very strong openings too. Crew Expendable. You know what, that's the only one that I can remember that actually sticks with me. But the point being, this game has a strong opening, one that sets the tone, the atmosphere, the direction, the stakes, the characters, and the mission. But see, the other Call of Duty games, even though the story and campaign is compelling and well made, this game carries a level of quality from that opening across the entirety of the game. It doesn't let up, it's always tense, it's always exciting, it's always unsettling, and there are quality character moments through and through. This game is just another level to what we've previously been given from Call of Duty campaigns. I could break down every mission, but I won't do that. I feel like breaking down the opening was important, but let's talk about another aspect, stray from the narrative a little bit, and talk about general structure of these missions. I'm pretty sure most were unique. It never felt like we were just progressing through an environment shooting terrorists and getting to the next cutscene. Every mission felt like a structured, well-paced story piece with action set pieces throughout. It's a very well layered and structured gameplay experience. It doesn't just rely heavily on pointing and shooting. There's a purpose behind every action, and it takes its time to slow the pacing quite a bit, to be honest, which works in its favor. For example, the second mission, we take control of Kyle Garrick, sitting in wait for a known terrorist group thought to be moving in for an attack in London. This is a tense section where we're in the midst of a terrorist attack, yet we can't do anything to stop it. We see innocents die, there are suicide bombers running at you, there's havoc, and it's awful to see. The cinematic nature of this mission makes it feel real. It doesn't just start you off and you have to shoot several waves of enemies, it creates a narrative reason for things to be happening. It gives you a purpose in this mission with its story, and that just adds to everything that you play. There are so many variants to what this game has you do, from flashback sequences with heavy story aspects to infiltration and stealth missions. You have guidance segments to help innocents escape, you have sniper portions, undercover missions, and semi-open world segments with objectives to complete. This game opens doors to so many gameplay possibilities in the way it structures its campaign content, and that coupled with the story and characters makes for the most immersive and impressive Call of Duty campaign to date. My favorite of the missions is probably Clean House. In this mission, you're tasked with infiltrating a townhouse in London. A known terrorist group is located there, and you have to stealth your way in with Captain Price and take out the threat and capture the intel. It's an incredibly impressive mission. It's not long at all, but the tense nature made it feel like one of the longest in the game. My heart was genuinely pounding at points from the way that it was made. You're in this small, confined space, moving with your squad, opening doors, and in that moment you have to make the decision of whether this person is or isn't a threat and use your weapon accordingly, potentially accidentally killing innocent people who aren't a threat to you. It's an incredible atmosphere and the pacing is phenomenal. As you move through this house, you can hear people talking, alerting their allies to your presence and raising the stakes. Women being used as shields, babies in the house crying, and the stakes are high, and you feel genuinely like your actions have consequences. One slip up and someone who didn't need to die could be shot. On top of that, you have no idea who's going to pop out of a door or be hiding behind the next corner or hiding under a bed. It's your job to clear these rooms, and it's low-key using kind of horror aspects to psych you out as you move from room to room. It's marvelous level design. Okay, now let's talk major spoilers. If you haven't played Modern Warfare 2019, I'd highly recommend doing so before listening to this part of the video. With this being a reboot of the Modern Warfare franchise, you'd expect there's plenty of references from the older games. There were a few major ones I noticed, some obvious and not so obvious ones. Let's just talk about some, because it's just another thing that shows that Infinity Ward clearly care deeply about this series and its history, and included little bits like this for the fans. First up, there's a line that Farah says in the mission, The Embassy.
Sir.
They'll be back. They'll come from the other side.
How do you know?
'Cause I would.
This, I feel, was a direct reference to the Task Force 141 opening of Modern Warfare 3.
They'll use the ridgeline for cover and fly in from the south.
How do you know?
It's what I do.
It might not be, but it's too similar to not be a reference to Price's line in this game, I feel. Next up, running with these Modern Warfare 3 references, is this moment from Modern Warfare.
You keep your muppets on a short string, Colonel.
Or what?
I'll fucking earn you from it.
Which to me is clearly a reference to the ending of Modern Warfare 3 where Captain Price hangs Makarov. It's simple, but I refuse to believe this isn't a clear reference. Another brilliant moment is more on the nose, yet still satisfying, from the mission Going Dark. After the building has been shot to hell by a helicopter, Sergeant Garrick is under rubble in this burning building. Price clears the rubble and says this line.
On your feet, we are leaving!
Which is an obvious reference to the end of Crew Expendable from Call of Duty 4.
This is Bravo 6, we're on our way out! On your feet, soldier! We are leaving!
And the last reference I wanted to mention was during the sniper mission where Farah asks Alex to shoot a watermelon. When this happened, I knew exactly what was coming, and sure enough, over the radio, someone says his fruit killing skills are remarkable in a different language. It's a really nice touch, a reference to what Gaz says to Soap at the beginning of Call of Duty 4's tutorial.
Nice the watermelon. Nice! Your fruit killing skills are remarkable.
These things aren't needed at all, but I think it shows Infinity Ward haven't made this reboot because they want to disregard what came before, but more so because they care about it so much. They want to reboot it to do it better, to take it to the next level, and I think these references are Infinity Ward saying, look, we still remember, and we care. Okay, right, let's talk about the ending because holy mother of God did this get me fully erect. I'm sure anyone else who's a long-time player of Call of Duty can agree this ending was beautiful. Captain Price sits down in a cafe with Kate Laswell. She briefs him on what comes next. She starts by mentioning General Shepard, the antagonist of Modern Warfare 2, pulled the files asked for by Captain Price. The files for a task force. Kate informs Price that Zakhaev wants Barkov's throne. Now he's gone, he can ascend to power. Zakhaev being the main antagonist of Modern Warfare 1. Price makes mention of the classic mission All Gillied Up, saying that he almost buried him in Pripyat with Macmillan. Kate responding that this isn't Imram but Victor, a character who died around the midpoint of Call of Duty 4, shooting himself in the head. Zakhaev wants Hadir out of Russian custody to use him in their operation. This is why Price needs his team. Kate hands Price a folder and he takes out the files. At this point I knew exactly what was coming and I was beaming. First up we get Sergeant Garrick, who we've been playing as for most of the game. We now find out that this is Gaz, the Gaz of this universe, a hugely iconic character from the Modern Warfare series, and we've been playing as him without even knowing. Next up we get John Soap McTavish, the protagonist of the Modern Warfare as a series. He's the first person we ever play as in Modern Warfare 1 and he's so very prominent throughout the series. Yet another character I'd come to love, and hearing his name in 2019 said by none other than Captain John Price was, what are we doing? This is insane. And finally we have Simon Riley, Ghost. It's 2019 and we've got a setup for Ghost, Soap McTavish, Gaz, and Captain Price. I didn't think I'd ever see this, and imagining seeing these guys in a fully fledged cinematic game of this caliber is, I'm in awe of the thought. And as we close the campaign, we get a close-up shot of Captain Price. Kate asks him the name of this task force, and I mean, what else is there to say?
141.
Now this wasn't my idea. It was mentioned on Discord to me, but I subscribed to this idea because it's a fucking good idea. Now remember in Modern Warfare 1, Call of Duty 4, when we have the flashback to All Gillied Up and One Shot, One Kill. Well, in Modern Warfare 3, we find out that Yuri and Makarov were actually there in 1996 when Price and Macmillan tried to kill Zakhaev, ultimately failing and just taking off his arm. Now in Modern Warfare Remastered, you can actually get a time paradox achievement if you shoot Makarov, subsequently averting the events of Modern Warfare 2 and 3. I like to think that Modern Warfare 2019 is the universe that would exist if Captain Price had also killed Makarov in 1996 in Pripyat. Where things are the same, but it's now a different story. We don't have Makarov, we don't have World War III, and so we get to experience a new narrative with the same characters all stemming from that point in One Shot, One Kill. Now imagine this. In Modern Warfare 2, 2021 let's say, we get a flashback to where we play the whole of All Gillied Up again. And right at the end, for whatever reason, come up with a reason, Price also shoots Makarov. and then it's revealed to the player that this is why we have the alternate timeline in this game. That's how the reboot works, which means these characters are more in line with the ones from the old games. More than just a simple reboot, they are the same characters, it's just they've been through different things due to the timeline skew in all gillied up. And I'm not saying that time travel exists or we can visit these alternate worlds, I'm just saying that we are seeing the story of an alternate timeline all stemming from that moment. We'd be the only ones who are aware of this, the characters wouldn't be. But I think it's perfect and shows clear care and direction and purpose for this new start to the series. This game is not just a brilliant game in its own right, it's also an ode to Call of Duty and to its fans. It's a celebration of what Call of Duty has done and what it can be, and taking risks while doing so, all of which have paid off. I love that they didn't take the easy route. They easily could have just retold the story of Call of Duty 4 or brought back all these iconic characters to get sales off the back of Soap or Ghost, but they didn't. John Price was our tether to this game. He was our nostalgia that we came for, but we got to experience this new story, this new world, the new characters, and set all of that up. Do so much legwork for a new story. They didn't take the lazy route at all. They tried their best to do this justice and use the ending to set up what will be a huge payoff given what this game did. It built up a new Price, a new world with new characters, a new threat, and used the outro to establish and set up characters we know and remember, antagonists to be reinvented as worse than they've ever been, and that's the magic of this game by telling this story. Thanks so much for watching, I do hope you all enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, more Call of Duty stuff to come for sure. Also, I'm working on an Outer Worlds video sometime soon. Go check out my other stuff, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, a big thanks to our Patreon producers who help make this content happen. King Richard III, Smexy Dork, Elska91, HBars12, I Got Big Shoes, Seth, and Josh Devillier. You're all wonderful. Thanks again for watching, lads, and I'll catch you all next time. Cheers.